Well, kia ora all. Welcome back again to the Huddy Hui episode 35. We had a technical glitch before, some reason why Zoom cut us off on the live stream, but we're here now and we're back. And Adam's here, and unfortunately we're all locked up at home. But our guests, Mike Lash and Boyle, who are part of the Major League Rugby program over for most of the year in the United States. The question I asked both of them, and Mike was going to answer that one first, and we were partway through the answer until something happened. Was how you both approached to go to Major League Rugby. So, Mike, kick us off.
Yeah, I remember what I said, to be fair. About this time last year, as I think I said before, got contacted by Jonathan Kaplan and Chris Pollock, who are our two bosses in the Major League refereeing side of things, and to see if I was keen to come over and be involved, which I pretty much was. Obviously, had to work out a few logistical challenges and hurdles to get through, but it probably wasn't until sort of early in the new year, once the competition was confirmed and the dates were confirmed, that everything sort of fell in place with me with visa and all of the above. And next thing you know, I was on the plane and amongst it all. So it came around pretty quick.
Harry.
Yeah, so I was involved with the Otago NPC set up last year, and one of the coaches, the Otago backs coach, Ryan Martin, he had just signed to the New England Freejacks to coach for the 2021 season. And then a few weeks later, I think he found out that I had a US passport and everything. So asked if it was something I'd be interested in. And I said, yeah, definitely. I wouldn't commit to it just yet, but I mean, happy to have a chat to you about it. And it came up, and I think we had just come out of a lockdown and COVID was pretty rampant in the US and everything, but I thought it was a pretty cool opportunity to take up, and just said yes and ended up over there the end of January.
Where does the American passport come from?
Yes, I was actually born over there. I only lived over there for 6 months. So Dad was studying over there at the time. Mum and my two older sisters were over there as well. So they ended up just popping me out.
And where were you born? Was it in the same state you ended up playing in?
Yeah, I was actually born in Boston, so it was quite a cool opportunity, like in that sense as well, to go back there and play and see all the places and everything that Mum and Dad had told me about. I'd been back once before when I was about 10 years old, but couldn't really remember it. Definitely appreciated it a bit more this time. Yeah.
Were there any other players that Ryan considered from New Zealand to take over with you, and why do you think he chose you to play instead of others?
What was that? Sorry, can you just repeat that?
Were there any other players that Ryan took with him, and what was Ryan's sales pitch to you to go?
Yeah, I guess what he saw was he described it as almost a startup business, the MLR, and he thought that it could be in a few years' time, and it was an opportunity to get my foot in the door there, I guess. But so he took over an Otago midfielder, Aleki Morris-Lome, who's probably in his mid to late 20s. Seth Angasi was also involved in the Otago team last year, and he's played quite a bit of Super Rugby. I think he's sitting on 49 caps and was involved in quite a bit of rugby over in Australia before he came over here. And then another player that Ryan had coached at schoolboy level in the New Zealand Barbarian setup was Joe Johnson, and he was playing for Bay of Plenty last year. So yeah, he's a flanker. He came over as well.
Where were you based, James, in the States? Mike, sorry.
Yeah, gee whiz, mate. That's a fine. You're lucky the recording didn't stop then, eh? I was based in Atlanta, so there was two teams based there with me. Obviously, Atlanta team was there, and then with the border restrictions with Canada, Toronto actually based themselves out of Atlanta for the season. So, which was pretty impressive feat for them, go up and rooting themselves and relocating to a different country and living in a hotel for 20 odd weeks. Wouldn't have been much fun.
So Major League Rugby, Mike, had some rather interesting law variations that happened in the competition. Tell us about some of those, because they added to the uniqueness of the tournament.
Yeah, so one that one that I guess the viewers will be aware of was the 20-minute red card, which was worked pretty well. And as Harrison will attest to, if some player goes off for a red card or anything like that, it regardless of their position, they take out a key person in any phase. If it's a forward, it could be a lifter in a line out, or someone in a pod, or a pillar in defence. So for the teams being able to bring a player back on in that 20 minutes and not totally reshape their whole game, it actually probably allowed for a lot of footy to still be played. Although I don't think we had many red cards, which was quite nice. We didn't have TMO, so that made it a little bit more of a blessing in the sense that we referees double-edged sword. We had pressure on to make the decisions, but we had a 2-hour time limit on the broadcast, so we couldn't spend hours on end replaying footage, which we see in some other competitions. What else did we have, Harrison? Well, we had a scrum time, so it was a 2 scrums, so maximum 1 reset. So if we packed down for a scrum and we reset that one, the next one had to be an outcome of such. Free kick, penalty, or obviously ball out and off we go. So that put a lot of pressure on the referees to be accurate in their decisions. It probably put a lot of pressure on the players as well to be accurate in their technique. Not that it became a lottery on the second reset, but it just obviously the whole onus behind that was to get the ball in and get it out, and us have more ball and play time to get the game going. What else do we have? I've bloody switched off, mate. I'm on holiday mode, so I'm trying to remember.
7-point try under the post.
7-point try was the other one. So if they scored under the post between the two, that was 7 points. So that was a bit of a gut punch to a few of the goal kickers when they were pushing their way up, trying to get points. And I'm pretty confident that a few players that ran under the post and then scored it just to the left-hand side, so the goal kicker would get himself to 50 or 100. I did speak to a couple of players that the kickers had asked if they could, just to help them get some points. And I'm pretty sure. There was just one other one. Really was halfback, which we have in domestic club rugby around here in the lower grades anyway. The halfback couldn't come past the tunnel, couldn't go into that little pocket that we see them so often come into at scrum. And that just allowed a similar thing with the one and done scrum scenario, was just allowed the ball in play so we could get going. And the only other little variation was a 1-minute kick block. So for fellas like Harrison who take forever and a day to kick a ball over the goalpost, from awarding the try, the kicker had a minute to kick the ball, which was interesting because early on in the piece, a lot of stadiums had 1-minute kick blocks, and you could, as a referee, you could hear the crowd very much counting it down, or yelling, and the players doing too. So when they took it off the big screen and allowed us referees to just control that, it just took away a little bit of different pressure. And I guess that's probably the American side of things with the shot clock and basketball and whatnot, where you've got that time to counting down. It adds a little bit of zest to the atmosphere in the game. So
with the scrum rule, do you feel like it sanitised the physical side of the contest, or is that actually a major breakthrough in terms of the safety of the game? Because obviously the less scrums, the less chances of injuries from a part of the game which causes a lot of injury.
Yeah, interesting one. Scrum's not the most it's not the phase of the game that the most injuries occur, but that's because in a game you might have 180 to 300 tackles, where we might have between 6 and 20 scrums sometimes. So I guess the completion rate improved because some teams still tried to one up on the others, and get that penalty. There's probably a mixture of Northern Hemisphere style footy in the sense that that scrum for a penalty and then kick the touch and then play off that line out, or some teams would just be like, we just want to play rugby and we're better on an attacking stable platform. So it probably, if anything, it may, if it stays in, it may change the physique of some of the props, because they're not they can't use so much of their size and stature to push over a scrum. A lot of it's going to be technique. So especially if the ball's in and ball's out, they're going to be used more dynamically on the field. So for a few of the boys that are shifting burgers rather than shifting weights, it might they might need to swap them out and get a bit more agile. So, but in saying that, we don't know what next year's going to hold. So,
did you find, Harry, that it significantly increased the enjoyment and pace of the game, these rule changes?
Sorry, my connection is cutting out. Enjoyment in terms of the scrum law, was it?
Enjoyment in terms of the speed of the game and the way it was approached.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, to be honest, I don't know what's going on in the scrums and everything, but as long as the ball gets in and gets out, I'm pretty happy. But I think the props, definitely, they were talking about it a lot in terms of reading referees and the way they're refereeing it, because it leaves so little room for error. If the ref's going to have to make a decision on that second scrum, then you want to be on the right side of it, because otherwise teams will just piggyback you up the field, and you know they've got them all 5 meters out from the line, and after 2 penalties. So yeah, I think that was one side of it, but teams definitely sped things up, which I think was good. Yeah.
So Harrison, the New England Freejacks, it was their inaugural season, and of course you were the fly half and fullback throughout the season. Tell us about the team. What were the dynamics like, and what were your fans like? How did they buy into the game of rugby union?
Yeah, it was quite an experience, really, that in terms of both the players and the fans. Our playing group came from all over the world. We had South Africans, Fijians, Australians, New Zealanders, Scottish, English, everywhere really. So there was a lot of people with different backgrounds and also at different levels of the games. You know, you had people who were at the end of their careers, had played international rugby and had played professionally for 10 years, but then you'd also have younger guys like myself who were sort of starting off our careers, and you also had the domestic American players who had grown up and gone through the US system. So that was different. And I think it meant that, you know, you had to be pretty clear on what type of game you wanted to play, because otherwise you end up with half the team trying to play Southern Hemisphere and the other half trying to play Northern Hemisphere. And then in terms of the fans, they're extremely passionate. Rugby obviously is growing still over there, and it's not a dominant sport. But the fans who get behind it, they really get behind it, and they're extremely passionate about it. Yeah.
What balance did New England ultimately settle upon? How would you describe the way your team typically played?
Well, to be honest, I think we ended up kicking quite a lot. We had quite a big focus on our kick to ruck ratio, and we wanted to make sure we were looking after our forwards and not burning them out and playing in the wrong areas of the field. So there was that factor, but then you also want to be able to score points, so making sure you're playing at the right times as well. So I'd like to think we tried to play a balanced brand of footy, but then depending on the conditions, and when I say conditions, it's not necessarily just a wet, cold day like we get in New Zealand. Sometimes it was extremely hot and sticky, where it was a bit harder to throw the ball around. As Lashy would know, in Atlanta, some of the days there were pretty hot. So yeah, you had to be a bit flexible around that as well.
And of course, America, many different playing conditions. You also play a number of games on artificial turfs as well. So that adds another dynamic to the game. Well, you know, this year the LA Giltinas was the other new team in the competition, and they took out the MLR this year, and they had some notable stars. What was it like, Michael and Harrison, you know, refereeing and playing them, but also playing out at the LA Coliseum, that famous ground in LA?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, they were a good team. There was a good mix of players in that squad, well coached too. You know, they had probably the key notables would have been Matt Giddo, Adam Ashley Cooper, two Aussie veterans, and a Canadian veteran on the wing, DTH Van der Merwe. So they made a mix of a few other guys. Billy Meeks, who played a bit of footy for the Rebels, and played over in England and that, and a couple of notable others. They were obviously early on were in a pretty attacking form. Dave Dennis, former Waratah, and Wallaby was their captain. So yeah, mate, they set a really good standard earlier on. I think as the season went on too, when a lot of the teams, as sort of Harrison said before, with the mixed dynamic of Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere style rugby, once other teams started to get their click and just start to really gel, it actually put a lot more pressure on the LA team. They were pretty fortunate, being well funded. They had a good pre-season in Maui in Hawaii. So whereas, as Harrison said, he turned up in the bit of cold north of Boston in the early starts of the year. I'm pretty sure he'll testify to this. I think he was shoveling snow off the pitch, probably one of your first training sessions. It'd probably be right, Has. So yeah, they had a really good chance to gel. And as I say, I think once the other teams started to kick on, New York, Atlanta, and San Diego, there's a few other teams that really gave them a good push. But refereeing at the Coliseum, I was pretty fortunate to have a game there, and it was it was amazing. Getting to learn a bit of history about the place, especially we're pretty lucky in New Zealand. We got Eden Park. It's 100 years old, athletic park. When it was in its heyday, I got to referee at Forsyth Bar. At Carisbrook before that was demolished. So having a footy game in that stadium was it was huge. It was absolutely massive. So it was a pretty cool place to be a part of.
I'm intrigued by the diet that you indulged upon in America. I've been to Atlanta, the Coke factories there, spray can cheese, Chetzels. It's a terrible diet for elite athletes. So how did you guys avoid some of the incredibly nasty, vitriolic American food?
Just a bit of extra running. You just don't avoid it. You just embrace it.
I think, as Harry said before too, the humidity and the temperatures around the place help you sweat a lot of it out without having to do too much exercise as well. So, yeah.
With the COVID situation, did you get to enjoy any American nightlife at such a unique place with charismatic, colourful people, or was it very much a case of staying in your own bubble and interacting within those confines?
Harry, you're a player, mate. You're an athlete. You better answer that.
We definitely got to experience it. I think the first sort of 2 months we were there, we were in a pretty strict team bubble. I think the league was pretty keen to make sure that they got the competition underway and everything going before things loosened up a bit. But we took full advantage of it, really. We were lucky to have a Kiwi over in Boston who he actually went to school with Lashy. So Bubba took us out a few nights and showed us around a few good places in Boston. And most of our games in the second half of the season were actually at home. So we went traveling, so we had those weekends pretty free, which was cool.
So, season 22 of Major League Rugby, are you both returning to the competition? If so, on a refereeing capacity or with the Freejacks, Harrison?
I'm not too sure what I'm doing at the moment. I've been offered a contract to go back to the Freejacks, but for me, I'm pretty young still, and I'm keen to give rugby a pretty good crack over here in New Zealand. So I've got to make a bit of a decision whether the MLR for me next year is sort of the best option, or whether I have to stick around and play club rugby to give myself a good shot of making an NPC team. So that's something I'll weigh up over the next couple of weeks or next month and go from there, I guess. Yeah.
And what about your future, Mike?
Yeah, no, I'm heading back. I've just the key thing is obviously working out the logistics as to when. I think the season kicks off the start of February next year, so it's a lot earlier than the season been. So for me, it's just working out when I can be over there to obviously get myself settled in and get some pre-season footy under my belt as well before the season kicks off. So yeah, I'm definitely heading back. And I guess it's probably a bit similar to Harrison in a way. Like I'm not part of the New Zealand national squad, referee squad anymore, but I'd love to have the opportunity to get back in there. So with the season starting early and finishing earlier, there may be an opportunity for me as well to try and push for the NPC sort of stuff again next season and kind of finish off a few unfinished things that I want to tick off.
So when the coronavirus hit, the American Rugby Union took a serious hit and basically devoted a lot of their resources to sevens. Has this Major League Rugby, which is a lot privately run, has it helped rejuvenate the sport in any way from a national administration viewpoint? Do you feel like that it's got momentum going ahead, or is it too hard to tell?
No, I think it's pretty promising. We went through the whole season, as Harrison said before. We were under pretty strict COVID protocols throughout the majority of the season. It probably wasn't till towards the back end that things started to relax for a lot of us. We were tested a couple of times a week, and we were traveling within bubbles and stuff. So I think that we got through and got 99 games played without any cancellations from COVID. I know a few were delayed due to weather conditions and stuff, but I think that just the fact that they managed to put the season together, showing and promoting a lot of locals. There's a lot of quality club rugby, quality club rugby and quality club rugby players coming through over there. That I think it'll help. It'll certainly help. In USA Rugby are in a very challenging position financially and probably just in general. So I think they're in the same bed now, which is probably a really good thing. And as Harrison said before as well, it's a startup business, and I can see it just becoming a lot better and a lot broader. There's a new team in next season. I'm assuming there's going to be expansions coming. There was a draft on yesterday for collegiate players coming through. So it's showing the locals, the USA and Canada Rugby, that there's pathways, and even for the referees and stuff too. I'm going to try and stick out for as long as I can. But if I can lose my contract to a local player or a local referee, I'd be pretty happy with that. So it's a promising thing. Looking forward.
And Harry, how would you compare the standard of it with what you played in New Zealand? And did the humidity contribute to the growth of your moustache?
It's great conditions for growing moustaches. Quite a few of the boys got on board with the Mo's, but the level, it was definitely probably a wee bit better than I thought maybe it might have been, but I guess I was going into the unknown in that sense. But in terms of putting it like on a scale, I'd say it's somewhere between club rugby and the NPC. As I said before, you got different players who different times of their careers and have had different experiences, so that contributes to that as well. But yeah, it was definitely a good standard, so that wouldn't stop me from going back. Yeah.
Well, Harrison and Mike, many thanks for coming on the Huddy Hui and sharing your experiences of Major League Rugby. Keep yourself safe during this lockdown, and we look forward to hearing from you later on in the year.
Appreciate it, boys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Mike.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good to be on here. Bye.
Thank you. Well, Adam, Major League Rugby, we watched a few games this year. There were some thrilling, entertaining games, but also it'd be great to watch games like that at the moment, particularly we're all locked up at home.
Well, the thing that was interesting from that interview, from my perspective, is the fact that the Americans have this innate entrepreneurial spirit, and they're always willing to be at the forefront of innovation within sport. It's not necessarily always a good thing. They've had some terrible ideas over the years, like the Lingerie Football League and other failed enterprises, but some of those innovative rules really did change the complexion of those games in Major League Rugby. The in and out scrum policy, for example, that has a profound effect on the game. A side that is dominant can piggyback a scrum and use that for advantage, but also if the referee is interpreting the scrum somewhat unfavourably towards the attacking side, then that actually eliminates that possibility of dominance. And the 1 minute shot clock is a great idea. Rugby should be over in 2 hours, because nowadays in Wellington, you go to the rugby for the curtain raiser, you wait 45 minutes for the next game, and then you have a 10-minute Royal Commission until forward pass, and you don't get out of there until 6 hours afterwards. That's like an afternoon of Test cricket.
Yeah, that's right. So I quite like the idea of the scrum rule. Yeah, great way to speed up the game. But we were just before we had the technical glitches at the start of the episode, we were just mentioning how we were not only going to be probably watching some rugby this afternoon, but there was going to be the Premier One Wellington Schoolboys final tomorrow, which at the moment is currently postponed, depending on what happens with this lockdown. But there's been a few casualties already. And of course, 1 week of the NPC is being delayed, but also for the second year in a row, Winter Tournament Week, which is often at the start of February, has been cancelled again by Sport New Zealand.
That's an absolute catastrophe. Winter Tournament Week, always in the first week of September. It's the culmination of the winter codes. And unfortunately, for the second year in succession, it's perished. And there are so many athletes who work so hard with their coaches and their schools to prepare for that tournament. And unfortunately, it won't go ahead. Just this week, I had the good fortune of interviewing Corbin Laban Palmer. He's a basketballer out of Tauranga Boys College, actually Ken Laban's nephew. And Corbin is the captain of the Tauranga basketball team. They won the Super 8 competition, first time in 12 years. They're undefeated in their 7 in-school matches, and that includes opposition like Auckland Grammar and Westlake, who are perennial powerhouses in basketball. He's a part of a cohort of boys who've gone through the school 5 years together. They've improved every year, and now they were of the conviction that their year was 2021 at the National Basketball Championships. Now, that's probably not going to go ahead anymore. Basketball works with a zonal qualifying system, and then the rankings of that are determined by the rankings for the nationals are determined by the finishes in the zoning tournament. The zoning tournaments are all gone. National secondary schools football is eliminated, and so that's very sad. And the rugby, which has actually been backdated to September 17 and 19 at the Institute in Palmerston North, there's still 3 weeks of competition left in Auckland and repechage fixtures to make the finals in Palmerston North in September. So it's looking grim for the future of the national top 4. But regardless of whether the top 4 goes ahead, the local final, Scots and Silverstream, must be played. And if we get out of lockdown, but it's not possible to host national tournaments, what's to stop us playing that game in November? We should deserve a conclusion to the season, and the boys should do it themselves if the teachers don't let them.
Many questions left to ponder, and you do feel for the sporting administrators around the country, the extra work they have to do. They had to go for it last year, and now they have to go on for it again. But fingers crossed, we can see some rugby and some sport played during, hopefully the next few months. So,
well, I tell you, Brad, if the Simpat Silverstream Wellington College semi-final is the last game of rugby I ever see, that's not a bad way to go out. That was an incredible game of rugby. And then Solomona, he's in year 12. You wouldn't know it. He's built like a block of flats. But anyhow, he had a disastrous 5 minutes leading up to the most euphoric moment of his rugby career. Wellington was ahead 32-23, absolutely rampant in the second half, which included a hailstorm at Haitaito Park. The game actually shifted from Wellington College because of exploded water pipes to Haitaito Park. They had COVID tested those water pipes too. And anyhow, the Silverstream scored a try to make it 32-30. And then they won a penalty. And then Solomona, seeking extra distance, missed touch. Unforgivable. And then Wellington College surrendered the ball on halfway. And then Solomona took the pass from the halfback and he dropped it. Just hopeless. Wellington College, last scrum of the game, it screwed sideways. The ball spat between the legs of the number 8, Ashton Tew. He retreated, tried to paddle it across to his winger, successfully executed that school. But the winger was a featherweight. He's only 65 kilos. He went down on the ball, intuitively as you do, to protect it. And 6 Silverstream forwards converged at the same time. So that poor lad who would have been doing everything in his capability to release the ball quickly and cleanly, couldn't do so. So he was rightly penalised by the referee, Steve Newsom. And then that left Solomona with the kick to win the game. The ball fell off the tee. He was warned by the referee to hurry up. One nonchalant step back, and he kicked it straight down the black dot. Extraordinary performance by Vanderbilt Solomona. Indeed, all 29 players in that game. There were multiple lead changes, thrilling tries, and Wellington College back in business this season, Brad. We're old boys of Silverstream, that's well known, but this year's Wellington College side deserve a lot of credit. They were embarrassing a couple of years ago, but they've really rejuvenated their rugby program.
Oh, they certainly have. And they've got young talents like Stanley Sullivan as well, who really scored that cracker try on the traditional back a few months ago. Real talent coming through at Wellington College. So let's hope there is some sport. Let's see, hopefully it is next weekend, but we'll wait and see. But that is the Huddy Hui for today. Look after yourself and keep safe. Ciao for now.